Hi, welcome back to Christine's Home Affairs. We have got another bag project today. I'm not sure if I'm going to make it to sell yet. We'll see how it goes. It's a fully lined bag with a really nice, I guess, provincial or French looking fabric, and it's going to have a recessed zipper on there as well as the welt pocket, which I showed you in a separate tutorial a few weeks ago. Stick around and I'll show you how we go about making this bag with the recessed zipper pocket. Okay, here's everything we need. We need 2 pieces of main fabric at 12 inches long by 1¼ inches wide, and it has some stabilizer fused to the back of it, which is 11 inches long by 1¼ inches wide. So we want 2 of those, and we also want 2 for the lining as well. You don't need to stabilize this. For the internal pocket, we need 9 inches wide by 18 inches high, and this is going to be the welt pocket on the inside. We need 2 pieces for our bag handles. Now this is 3½ inches wide by 23 inches long. I'm using upholstery fabric for my handles because they're nice and thick. Then I don't have to go and stabilize them. But if you're using regular fabric, put some pellin or batting inside that as well. Then I've got 2 lining pieces. Now my lining pieces are 15½ inches wide by 13 inches. And we need 2 of those for the lining. And for the main body of the bag, we need 2 pieces at 15½ inches wide by 14 inches, and we need this stabilized as well. Today I'm using a cotton fabric. I'm using a fusible batting behind this. So 15 inches by 14 inches, you need 2 pieces and stabilize it. The very first thing you want to do, take your 3½ inch wide handle by 23 inches long. We want to mark a line straight along the center of the wrong side of this fabric. And the reason for that is I'm too lazy to take this to the iron and fold it in half and then fold it in half again. So what I've done is marked a guideline for myself, and I'm just going to fold the fabric into that line, fold that side in as well, and then bring the edges together and clip it in place. And that just saves having to iron the fabric. I can just keep on going, folding the edges together. And when that's done, I'll take both handle pieces to the machine, stitch straight down both long edges of both handles. You don't need to worry about the raw edges because they'll be hidden in the bag. Before I start doing anything with my outer fabric, I'm going to put a label on the outside. So I've marked the center position, and I do like to put it in the top third of the bag. So I think that's okay around about there. I'll center the backing plate over the center of my fabric, and I'll mark where the prongs are going. So I know that my prongs will go in the second last hole. And this is just the same as doing the magnetic snaps. Put your seam ripper in at the bottom, go through all of the layers of your batting and whatever stabilizers you've got, and then come up at the top of the mark that you've made. And by bringing that point out, you're not going to go and tear the rest of your fabric. So I've marked a small hole there, and then I can put my prongs through and spread that apart. Now I can go and put my bag together, and I have a directional fabric here, so I need to be careful when I put these 2 pieces together that I'm not actually putting them upside down. Make sure you have your bag facing the right orientation, bring the right sides together, and we're going to stitch straight down the side edges and all along the bottom edge as well. That's ready to be stitched. For the entire project, unless I mention otherwise, we'll be doing 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now it's time to do the boxed corner on the main part of the bag. I've already decided that I only want to have a 1 inch boxed corner, and that will give me 2 inches width across the bottom and on the sides. So I'm going to mark 1 inch from the stitching line. You can take this to the machine and just do it straight at the machine rather than marking out your squares. So what you could do here, just put your hand in the bag, open it out, and you've got the corner of your squares just there. Pinch that out, and we're going to make sure we have our seams in opposite directions. That just helps the bag lock into place, and you can see the corners line up here, and then you can stitch straight across there. And we'll do that on both corners. Because the outside of the bag usually has a lot more substance to it, whether you're using your wadding or a thicker fabric, I do like to triple stitch along here. When you've done that, you can chop off the ears at the bottom, turn your bag the right way round, and we're going to mark the position of our handles now. Bring the centre of your bag out and line up the side seams, and then make a mark at the centre on both sides. This is the centre of our bag here. We need to find where we're going to put our handles. I usually like to put my handles in the centre of this area here. So we've got our centre marked, we've got our side seam, and I'll put my handle in the centre there. Easiest way to find that is to take your centre position and place that over the side seam, and then make another mark and do the same for the other side. And I have a mark just here and another one here. That's where I'm going to place my handle. So the centre of my handle will go over that line, clip that in place, and I'll keep the handle nice and flat and bring that up to the other side. And then for the other side of the bag, I don't have to make any marks at all. All I need to do is make sure my bag is lined up properly on the side, take my other handle and see that it lines up with the other side of the bag, and you can see there that those handles match up nicely. I'll just quickly go and stitch that down on all four ends of the handle. Take your pocket piece and turn it wrong way up, and we're going to mark 1 inch from the top edge. We've just got a line there, and we want a second line 1 inch away from that. And we're going to close that up by making a line 1 inch on either side. With my rectangle drawn out here, it's 1 inch from the top and 1 inch in from either side. We want to mark a centre line, so that will be 1/2 inch down from the line that we've previously drawn, and then we'll just draw a diagonal line to the corner of the rectangle. This centre line here and the diagonals will be our cutting sections once we've stitched our rectangle. Take your 13 by 15.5 inch lining piece. We're going to fold that in half. You can finger press and put a pin or mark it. So this is the 13 inches and 15.5 inches. This will be the top of our lining. Mark a line 1 inch from the top edge. It's really just a placement line so that we can put our pocket there, and we'll place the centre of our pocket piece just on that line we've just drawn, and we'll put that in line with that centre point. Take that to the machine, and we're going to stitch all the way around the rectangle here, and then we'll come back and we can cut this open. Now we can cut this straight along that centre line here, and using some scissors cut into the point but not beyond the stitching line. Turn the pocket through and then give it a really good press, making sure that you don't have any pleats in the corner. Once you've pressed that pocket opening and it looks nice, take this pocket piece and fold it up by 1 inch. So what you want to do is bring just 1 inch of fabric up to cover that little slot that you've got there. So you can see that'll just sit nicely like that. When you turn it over the right way, you're going to have a nice little bit of orange peeking out at the top there, and you'll be able to stick your hand in the pocket. So it's just a nice little contrast. Press that down, and then you can top stitch 1/8 of an inch from the outside edge just around on these 3 sides. You can do the top if you want to, but it's really not necessary. So just stitch down the 2 short sides and the long edge 1/8 of an inch. Okay, I've stitched that down along the side and the bottom, and you've got that nice little opening here. Flip it upside down and then bring the other end of your pocket to meet the top edge of the pocket here. Give that a press, and we can now stitch the long edges of the pocket and the top edge. Now you want to make sure that you've got the lining piece out of the way. Grab your pocket sides and just flip that lining out of the way and pin each of the sections in place with the lining well out of the way. And you can take this to the machine now. It's actually easier if you keep the lining piece faced up, because then you can just move that out of the way, come along and stitch along here, along the top, and then down the side again. It'll also be easier to have your pins on the top side so that you can actually see them and not run over them. At the top end here, I am just going to stitch straight over that flap there. That'll just help prevent it from shifting anywhere. And there we have it, a single welt pocket with a really nice contrast fabric and plenty of room in there to store whatever you like. Now take your other lining piece and we'll place these right side together, and we're going to stitch down both short edges and along the bottom edge. I'm going to have an opening at the bottom for turning through, so I'll just leave 2 or 3 inches at the bottom there, stitch along there and up. For this bag, I don't want to have too big a boxed corner. From the stitching line here, I'm going to mark 1 inch on either side. You can actually take this to the machine and use the marking on your stitch plate. Make sure your seams go in opposite directions. So the one underneath is going to my right, the one at the top wants to go to my left. I'm going to allow that. And on this side here, I've got the other end of the seam going to my right. I'll make sure that does the same. And then the side seam will go to my left. I'm just going to stitch straight across here. So if I were to use the markings on my stitch plate, I would use a corner of my stitching line here and line that up with the 1 inch mark on my stitch plate and then stitch straight across. So it's not necessary to go and mark your fabric if you don't want to. Once you've done that, you can trim off these little corners and our lining is completely finished. Because we marked 1 inch, it's allowed us to have a 2 inch boxed corner. Okay, we have our main strips and our lining strips for the zipper tab. I've put some adhesive tape just on the back of it, and we're going to fold the raw edges over by 1/2 inch. So I've folded that over, and I'll do the same for these. The raw edges of each of these tabs have been folded in by 1/2 inch underneath. When you're working out which end of the zip needs to be opened, you want to be really careful here. So when we open our zip, we're pulling away from the curved edge, and when we're closing our zip, we're closing it in the direction of the curved edge. When we place our zip on the tab, we want to open it from here out that way. So this is the side that we actually need to open out and make our markings and then flip our zipper edges over. Line up your zip and make a mark at 1 inch from the edge. You can open your zip out further if you want to. Where this line is here, you fold that down and then flip it out to the right. Pop a clip in, the zip comes up and around like that. And we can just stitch this closed. You can do that by hand with a needle and thread, or take it to the machine. And with this side, we're going to do exactly the same. So you're going to flip this forward at the fold line, pinch it together here, and then just fold that out. So you can see the top of the zip there, the curves come out nice and evenly, and we can tack or stitch that in place. I'll take that to the machine and quickly just tack that down on both sides. So the top section of my zip has been tacked down on both sides, and I can place that onto my zipper panel. And I'm going to use double-sided tape. It's a little bit easier. I don't have to worry about pins or clips being in the way. I'll run that right along the top edge there. When I place this zip down, I'm going to place it about 1/4 inch from the top edge here. Then I can take my lining piece and place that directly over the top. First of all, I will put some more tape down and we'll place that directly over the top, making sure that we line up the edges on the side there. So I've got the edges of the tab lined up on the side. We're going to stitch right along to the very edge here, and just make sure that's lined up there as well. When that's been stitched, you can trim off the excess. We'll open that out, take this back to the machine. You can top stitch the short edge all the way along the edge of the zipper and then back down here again as well. Okay, I've got one side of the tab done. I've just gone and stitched very close to the edge here, and that's just to keep the layers together so that it makes it easier when I'm actually making my bag later. Now we need to put our other tab on, and you want to make sure that lines up with the other side. Run some tape along that. The straight edge of this tab matches up with the straight edge of that one there. And the same at this end. The tabs will line up nicely there. And another row of tape for the lining. And we can line up our lining piece so that it matches as well. And you want to make sure it lines up with the edge of your fabric at the top here and at the other end. When you're happy with that, take it to the machine and we'll stitch that as well. And then once you're happy with that, trim off the excess, open that out. We can top stitch the side edge all the way along the zipper and down the other side. I've got a tab for the end of my zip, and that is 2 inches by 3 inches. On the short edge, I just want to run a little bit of tape just within the 1/4 of an inch there. And this will help me fold my edges in after. So I can finger press that in place now, fold it right side together. We'll stitch down these 2 edges here and then we'll turn it the right way round. So I've got an opening just at the bottom there. I'm going to trim the corners and I'll turn this the right way around. Because that tape is there, it's actually going to fold a lot easier for me. I'm going to fold it in to get rid of the raw edge. So I have a tiny little pocket there. I'll choose the best side and then we'll place the zipper directly inside that. Even it out and then take this back to the machine, stitch this section down here and all the way around all 4 sides. Okay, now I'm only using this section, not this area here. Fold the edges together, mark the center on each side, and I've marked it with a notch. And then with the lining fabric, I've done the same thing. I've brought the side edges together, found the center, and I've just cut out a little notch, or you can mark it with a pen or a marker. This pocket is going to be the back section of my bag. So with the lining inside out, I've got the pocket on the back section of my bag, and the zip is going to open from left to right. So I need to make sure that with my zip facing up the right way, I place it faced up to the back section of the bag and clip it in place, matching up the center notches, and then do the front section of the bag, matching up those same notches. And if you want to, you can actually go and stitch both sides of this down now, but to save time, I'm not going to do that. Open out the zip all the way, take your main bag, and we're going to put this bag inside the lining. This pocket is the back of my bag, and I've got my label on the front, so I want to have my label facing me and the label behind, the pocket behind. Place the main one inside the lining, put the handles inside as well, and I want to match up the notch here with the center position that I've marked on my bag, and we can line that up. We'll do the same on the other side. Match that notch with the center mark. Make sure your handles are nice and straight. Hide the zipper tab out of the way. We don't want to stitch over that. Find your side seam. I've got this side seam going to my right and the other one will go to my left. And then just neatly line up the bag all the way around. When you have everything lined up nicely all the way around the top, you've got the handles inside, you've got the zipper tab on the inside as well. We can take this to the machine, stitch all the way around. When you've done that, you can turn the bag the right way around. Now we're not quite done yet, because if you remember, the main bag was 1 inch longer than the lining. So once you close this up, this isn't going to look like much at all. We still need to fold the main piece down by 1 inch. So take the lining out of the way, fold the main fabric down by 1 inch. So we've got our side seams just here. I folded the side down by 1 inch, made sure my lining is out of the way at both sides, and we're going to do that for the entire bag. So we're going to fold the lining out of the way and fold our fabric down. Just put a clip in place, and we'll actually go around the bag and do a top stitch. So with the lining out of the way, I've measured a 1 inch tab all the way around the top edge of the bag. We need to top stitch that, but before we do that, we need to secure our handles there as well. As you're stitching around, flip the handle up and you'll do your top stitch, and you'll actually stitch the handle to the top of your bag as well. And just make sure your lining is out of the way. When top stitching, I prefer to sew my bags with the outside facing up. That way I can see if there's anything wrong with it. I find that the top stitching always looks so much nicer than the underneath. At the handles, I always go forward, back and forward again, just to make sure they're nice and secure, and just make sure that you've got the zipper tab out of the way when you're doing this top stitching. And that's it. All that's left to do now is to close up the bottom of the bag. Okay, once you've done the top stitching on your bag and secured your handle in place, close up the bottom section of your bag. So that little opening there, we'll just take that back to the machine and close it up. And there we have our finished bag with a recessed zipper. You can make this a little bit longer if you want to and have it hanging out the side of your bag. I like to just tuck it in the bag. And we've got a little pocket on the inside there as well. Look, twins! So I had enough fabric that I could make 2 of these bags, which is exactly what I've done. I'm really happy with the way this bag turned out. I've put my nice metal labels on the outside. There'll be a link in the description as to where I get my labels from. I do get a lot of people that ask me about them, so that link will be in the description box below. We've got the recessed zipper on the inside there. Open it out and you've got heaps of space in there, and the single welt pocket as well. I really love this fabric too. It's not quite big enough to put a laptop in, but it'll certainly be big enough to put a Chromebook or a MacBook, something smaller like that. This pattern is very easily adjusted to something a little bit wider. If you wanted to have an extra 2 inches on your bag, then make your recessed zipper an extra 2 inches longer as well. I don't have much else to say about this one. I'm not going to make these as a regular product to sell in the shop because they're too time consuming for me, and I really can't be bothered doing those recessed zips. I'd possibly do them with the magnetic snaps because they're much quicker to put in, and the amount of time that it takes to make them compared to putting just some snaps in, I think I'd rather do that. I'm going to put these 2 bags in the shop at $55. The reason I'm doing that, well, one of the reasons I'm doing that is because of the amount of time that it took to make the bags, but also there's only going to be 2 of them. It's a really nice fabric. It's a good sturdy bag with that wadding on the inside as well. I think $55 is a good price. So I'm not really sure, but I could always go down in price if it doesn't sell. So if I just stick them in the shop at $45 and they sell, I'll be thinking, why didn't I do them at $55? So I'm happy enough to let them sit in the shop for a little while if they don't sell, and then I can make the decision later. So $55 it is for me. And of course, this is all rescued fabric. Again, I didn't buy any of the fabric. Some of it was either donated or given to me or from deceased estates. And for the handles, I've used some upholstery fabric, which I get for nothing as well. So the only thing that cost me money in this bag was my tags and the zips. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think, and I shall catch you next time. Bye for now.